Who's going to Atlanta? God, the scenarios are ridiculous. We're going to discuss that and react to our SEC Week 12 games, the Locked On Squad Show edition.
You're talking ball with the SEC Squad. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC Squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up, you're part of the SEC Squad.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into a live squad show, reaction, takeaways, SEC Week 12 edition. I want to remind you guys, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Still plenty of college games left on the schedule. We'll have a little bit of a split squad today. Chris Gordy here with you, Locked On SEC. Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss. We may have a few other guys jumping in with us. We'll have some video reaction from others who can't be with us. So we'll get into it all. But Stephen, before we get into the games that happened yesterday, I do want to get into, because this seems to be the biggest discussion today, is who's going to Atlanta. And this is where I kind of start to say, you know what? Bring back the East and the West. It wasn't so bad. Making it an open free-for-all, I can't figure it out. And then you start to, if you're one of these teams, Stephen, that's on the cusp of going, you ask yourself, do I even want to go play for an SEC title? But let's take a look at the standings. Currently, it is Texas A&M at 7-0. I still don't understand, Stephen, why they haven't clinched. But we'll get into that in a minute. Cole Kublik tweeted out about it this morning. Georgia's at 7-1. Ole Miss at 6-1. Alabama now at 6-1. This is in the conference. And then you got Texas, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt all hovering at 4-2. But what do you make of it, Stephen?
Well, I think Georgia is pretty well set to go in because they're done. There's no way they can screw it up. Texas A&M, I think the hesitation with that is if they lose to Texas, Alabama jumps back over Texas A&M, and it would be an Alabama-Georgia type thing. I don't know if there's any way that Ole Miss can go, but it appears that the Alabama-Georgia championship game or Alabama-Texas A&M or something like that is where we're headed.
Yeah, so this is what Cole Kublik tweeted this morning. He said, Georgia is in with an Alabama loss or an A&M loss or an Ole Miss win and a win strength of schedule over Alabama. Alabama gets to Atlanta with a win and an A&M loss. Remember, A&M has to go to Austin to play Texas. Alabama also in with a win and an Ole Miss loss, and Alabama in with a win and a win strength of schedule over Georgia. Lastly, A&M, they are in with a win. If they beat Texas, they're in no matter what. Or if Alabama loses and Ole Miss loses. Ole Miss gets to Atlanta with a win and an A&M loss and an Alabama loss. And it's not the craziest thing to think about, Stephen, because let's talk this out a second. Alabama at Auburn. That place is going to be absolutely electric. I think Auburn plays Mercer this week. They can almost use this as a dress rehearsal. And Bama coming off the home loss to Oklahoma, that offense 2 weeks in a row against LSU and against Oklahoma has kind of been ground a little bit. What's Auburn's best asset? Defense. So it's not the craziest. And then Texas at home in Austin against A&M in that rivalry game, tell me they can't get up for that. So it's not crazy, but talk to me about the Ole Miss perspective. Do you even want to go? Do you want the week off to rest and get ready for the playoff?
Honestly, I think I said this on one of the shows previously. I would kind of like to go just because that joke would stop about Ole Miss in Atlanta. All of that would go away. So I would appreciate that disappearing. But if you want to look at the playoff and how it affects what is going on, I would absolutely prefer that Ole Miss is the 3 seed and end up with the number 5 seed in the playoff playing against the G5 team in the first round, lining up with Texas A&M or whoever, whatever's predicted right now. That would be the ideal, but just personally, I would like to see some of the jokes go away about Ole Miss and Atlanta. That would be a nice feeling as well.
Well, and I said it before. I mean, look, the Alabama Georgia thing is great, but you know, I'm also kind of like, look, I'm always like underdog and new blood, it would be cool for A&M and Ole Miss to get there. But again, I don't know how that works at this point. I think Georgia is in a pretty good spot to get in, regardless. But yeah, it's an interesting world we live in now with the 12-team playoff, where you say, yes, if you get to the SEC championship game and you win, you obviously get the first round bye, and that's awesome. But it's also another tough game against a presumably top 10, top 15 team. And here's the other thing, Stephen, we can react to. If Alabama goes and loses, that's a third loss. Are they in the playoff no matter what? Because there's some sexy 10-2 teams out there that might be more appealing than them. That gets very interesting.
One thing's interesting about this, because Alabama, as you know, was the beneficiary when Florida State's quarterback got injured in the 14 playoff at the very end. There could be a little karma thing type happening to where that becomes an excuse to put another team into the playoff, even though they claimed that the loser of the conference championship game would not be penalized. But with the schedule being as unbalanced as it is, with Texas A&M playing basically the entirety of the bottom half of the SEC thus far this season, it will be interesting to see exactly how the committee looks at Alabama should that scenario happen. It's already going to be weird. I know that was the beginning of the season, but there is basically a bomb on Alabama's resume, and that Auburn game, there's some serious pucker factor right now, I would imagine, in Tuscaloosa right now.
Yeah, we're going to find out. We'll find out what happens here down the stretch. But let's get into reacting a little bit to what. Oh, and by the way, real quick point to make, because I saw somebody said, even if Bama loses in the SEC title game, you can't keep them out of the playoff. They did it to Georgia a couple of years ago, right? Yep. Georgia, took that loss, and it was like, nope, you're out. And, it was their first loss of the season, right? So anyway, it is what it is. But let's react to the games yesterday, Stephen. I want to start with Texas A&M with the historic comeback win against South Carolina. Unbelievable, down 30-3 at halftime, a 27-point deficit. Their largest comeback win since that 2013 Chick-fil-A Bowl where Johnny Manziel came back against Duke. But Marcel Reed, I had a friend text me. He's like, at halftime, he goes, Marcel Reed is playing like trash. And then in the second half, he came out and played like Heisman contender Marcel Reed. And so what'd you make of it, man? I thought it as much as we want to celebrate A&M's resilience and digging deep and find a way to come back, we have to talk about South Carolina absolutely messing themselves, and just like they are as much to blame as A&M is to celebrate in this one.
Yeah, and before we go any further on this, what is it with head coaches being afraid of points, afraid of a field goal? Like, they play the analytics game and they do that. South Carolina, after Texas A&M scores their first touchdown of the game to cut it to 30-10, they drive it all the way down to the Texas A&M 31-yard line. Would it be a long field goal? Yes, it would be north of 40 yards. But there is nothing in football that changes the momentum like a fourth down stop. And once South Carolina got stopped on that fourth down, you just heard that place start to pop. And almost at that point, when it was 30-10, you could tell that South Carolina was going to lose that football game, because that is absolutely ridiculous that would happen. All you needed at that point was just hold serve, get a point here and there,
right.
Make it to where you had to do just anything, and you were going to be in good shape. And I cannot believe South Carolina peed down their leg at the end of that game, because they had that game won and just gave it away.
Well, even midway through the third quarter, I'm like, just run the football and eat some clock. But it was like incomplete pass, and I'm going, oh my God. It was like 11 minutes to go, and I'm like, there's so much time left in this game that, yes, it's a massive deficit, but the only way A&M digs themselves out of this hole is if you keep giving them the ball back. And South Carolina kept giving them the ball back and doing nothing with it. And it's it was nuts, so man. I just like I said, I don't want to take anything away from A&M, because Yeah,
A&M completed that comeback in like 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. I mean, It was the quickest 28 points ever. It was ridiculous.
And look, Cassius Howell, I get to vote for a lot of the postseason awards. I'm telling you right now, I'm putting Cassius Howell on every postseason list out there. I think he should be a finalist for the Lombardi. I think he should be a finalist for a lot of different awards. That guy is a difference maker. He's incredible. And so, but on the flip side, if I'm a Carolina fan today, I'm waking up going, Shane Beamer. I mean, look, we like the guy, or they like the guy. They, seems like a nice dude. I've interviewed him a couple times. I just, man, it's losses like that where you got to look yourself in the mirror. Now 3-7, 1-7 in the SEC. This is almost, remember preseason, Stephen, SEC Media Days, Lenore Sellers was the preseason first team all SEC quarterback. And he's still being talked about as the first pick in the draft, or at least top 10 in the NFL draft. So that tells you right there, for this team to be 1-7 in the SEC, 3-7 overall, it's coaching, right? I mean, it's hands down coaching. It's not talent. You've got talent.
Look at the three quarterbacks that were named at SEC Media Days preseason. It was first team Lenora Sellers. Second team was DJ Lagway, who actually had a decent game against Ole Miss on Saturday. It was one of DJ Lagway's better games. And third was Arch Manning. It's just funny to think about all of the hype in the offseason and how it got built up and how it ended up actually playing out, to where Ty Simpson, Diego Pavia, who even thought that Trinidad Chambliss was a thing at that point. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but we're going to do it all again too. Now we're going to create all the hype and talk about all the storylines for 9 months after football season. Again, we're going to do this again, but it's kind of funny to look back and go, man, there's so many people that were just so wrong, just gassing up these quarterbacks.
Let's talk A&M, because the news came out earlier in the day that Mike Elko was going to be getting a big fat extension. Now, look, I've changed my tune on all this stuff. I am in the moment of pump the brakes. A guy is under contract, and he is living up to his contract. He is earning the contract you gave him. But instead, these ADs go, the agents call the ADs and go, you might lose your guy. Hey, Penn State's calling. Hey, he might leave. And suddenly these ADs go, oh my God, we cannot lose Mike Elko. Oh my God, we need to get everybody on the phone. We got to start raising money right now. We need to give him a big extension and make him one of the top 5 highest paid coaches in college football. And my attitude was like, slow down, take a minute to breathe. And the funniest part would have been had he lost that game yesterday. On the same day, he signs this massive extension. But regardless, they found a way to win. Look, Elko deserves the raise. I still am just amazed at how these ADs, the agents, pull them over their lap and absolutely spank them into oblivion, going, we own your ass. Like the minute we have any success, it's in your ear going, you better pay my guy. And again, Mike Elko, congrats to him. But what happens if he goes 7-5 next year? We're all going, man, that was a little bit overreactionary, wasn't it?
Well, that's how the Jimbo Fisher contract came to be. If we want to just keep it Texas A&M, he went, was it 10-2 and went to the Orange Bowl during the COVID year or something like that, whatever the record was. And it's like, oh my goodness, Jimbo Fisher, we got to get him paid. And that's when the contract happened and all of this started going downhill for the Aggies. Now, thankfully, they have oil money out the wazoo, so they were able to handle everything that was there. But there's some schools that just can't do it. There's haves, there's have-nots, and the agents know that. And the haves they use against the have-nots to think they're going to take your coach, and there's no proof that it's going to actually happen. All you can do if you are an AD. Let's talk about the Lane Kiffin situation that's going on right now, okay? All these people are coming in and after Lane Kiffin. All you can do is put in a competitive offer, put your best foot forward, and hope for the best. It doesn't matter all the media narratives that are going on, people carrying the water for what they think's going to happen, stuff like that. No, just put your best foot forward, make a good offer, make that offer publicly known, and then let the chips fall where they may.
I should mention here that just kind of looking at AM's schedule next year, they will get Arizona State will come to Kyle Field. We'll see what they look like if Kenny Dillingham is still there. Their road games next year are at Alabama, at LSU, at Oklahoma, at South Carolina, at Mizzou. So you have 5 true road games in the SEC. And then home games against Texas and Tennessee and Kentucky and Arkansas. I'm just telling you right now, Steven, that like the whole Texas 8-4 joke, like it could come back down there. And maybe Aggie fans are fine with that. Like if they make the playoffs this year and they make a run, I mean, look, they could even win a national championship the way Marcel Reed's playing. But like, I'm just saying, like, we tout all this up. Don't expect Elko to go 10-0 again next year. Like it's going to, the means are going to come back down because look at the schedule next year. And that's everybody saying about their schedule this year was on paper, it looked tough coming in. And then as the season played out, South Carolina wasn't as tough. LSU wasn't as tough. And all their wins have come from the bottom half of the SEC. And again, it's not a criticism. It's an observation. I'm not trying to demean the Aggies. We're just saying, yeah, you avoided a lot of those the top tier teams in the SEC this year, and that's fine.
Yeah, their biggest game, obviously, in the top half team, you're going to face Texas in Austin at the end of the season. And honestly, that is going to be the litmus test. We know what happened against Notre Dame. I'm not taking that away at all early in the season, but that'll be the litmus test of what's going on. And if they make it to Atlanta, then you're going to get either likely Alabama or Georgia or maybe even Ole Miss or something like that, and you're really going to be tested as well. So you're going to know what you have going into the playoff. I do not know that Texas A&M knows what they have right now. That's the weird thing, because the same performance that they had against Notre Dame and South Bend, they did the same thing in Fayetteville against Arkansas. So it's like, which way does it need to go? But I will be impressed. I like Marcel Reed. It's fantastic. His dad actually follows my show because he used to be an Ole Miss commit. He still does that, sends me DMs all the time. I like what's going on. I like the trajectory that Marcel Reed is on right now. But do we actually know that he is there, or is he still building, if that makes sense, Chris?
Yeah. And look, he's probably, I mean, what is he, a redshirt sophomore? I mean, I think he'll be back next year. And A&M could be even better offensively. So, I mean, even though the schedule was much tougher next year for A&M on paper, you know, who knows? You know, is Arch Manning back at Texas? We assume. I mean, there's a lot of things to assume about next year. Let's get into some of the other games here in just a second right here on Locked On SEC Squad Edition. All right, my screen froze there for a second. Let me just jump back into it. The NBA is back. No better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, you want to ride the hot hand. FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So all you got to do is head to FanDuel.com, get signed up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Steven, let's dive back into it. Let's react to one of the games last night. Let's start with Georgia and Texas. This game was close. Well, put it this way. Georgia scores a touchdown the first quarter, touchdown second quarter. It's 14-3 at the half. They come out of halftime. Gunnar Stockton, a few drives in, Gunnar Stockton throws an interception. Texas capitalizes. All of a sudden, we got a game. It's a 14-10 game. And then Georgia does something pretty incredible. They go on a touchdown drive to extend their lead. And then they decide to kick an onside kick to steal another possession. So, and then this thing, the route was on from there. What did you make of this one? I just thought, again, I thought Texas would lose a close one. I didn't foresee them, Georgia running away with this one. What'd you make of it?
When it was 14-10, I was like, oh, this is going to be a game. It was going to be maybe a repeat of the Ole Miss game a little bit earlier on, because Georgia doesn't lose in Athens very often. Then it was 21-10, and then it was 28-10, and that onside kick. And what you saw, I think Kirby really likes this team. Like, he hated last year's team. You could tell by the reaction and what was going on. He did not like last year's team. I think Kirby likes this team. And he is willing to take chances like kick that onside kick because the defense isn't as good as it's been. The offense hasn't been as good as it's been in the past as well. But overall, they're just a good football team. And getting that possession, I think Kirby knew that if he could get it to 3 scores, it was over. So when it was 21-10, he thought, hey, I can get the ball back. If it's 28-10, this game is over because Texas is not going to be able to score that many points. And Georgia, honestly, if we're going to be real about it, after yesterday, Georgia, even though they have one more loss than Texas A&M, probably should jump them if we're going to be honest about it.
Yeah, it's and here's the tough one because I was saying coming into this one because there's some Texas fans talking about it. Michael Taft said after the game, they said, is this still a playoff team? He said, yes, hands down. We're still a playoff team. They're 7-3, 4-2 in the SEC. If they beat A&M the last week of the season, rivalry game, it's in Austin, it would be A&M's only loss on the season. So I think, and that's a top 3. We'll see where A&M's ranked at that time, but top 3 win on their resume going in, finishing the regular season. I think the topic of debate gets into that week 1 loss to Ohio State. You almost have to give them a pass on because it was you scheduled preseason number 1, number 2 team on the road. You lost by 1 score. And if, like, the argument is if that's the game that keeps them out, Steven, then why schedule that game anymore? Texas could have scheduled Texas State week 1, beat them 50-3, and, they'd have 2 losses right now. So I think we have to be careful about dinging them for that one. But the one to me, the 2 components here, Steven, are they lost to Florida. That's an inexcusable loss because the Gators are so bad this year. And then yesterday's game was not close to Georgia. Like, Georgia ran away with it. Had that been a field goal loss, you got, there's some losses we can talk out and make excuses for. But I just think at this point, they would need a lot of help from other teams falling around them for Texas to get into the playoffs still.
Yeah, I honestly, you want to compare Texas to 2024 Ole Miss, you can probably do that pretty easily. That Florida game was the Kentucky game. That is the bomb that is going to be on the resume. And even with the loss against Georgia and even with the loss against Ohio State, you can excuse those. It's the one that's Florida team that's likely going to go 3-9 this year. That's going to be the problem that you're trying to explain. And remember, real quick, before all this happens, all of the committee members and everybody are going to hear for 2 weeks after the rivalry weekend with the conference championship games and all that happening, why the SEC is overrated and why they shouldn't allow 5 teams in. Why BYU deserves that spot, or Utah, or something like that. Just like a year ago, it's going to happen again. Texas is going to fall victim to that. And honestly, I talked about it on last week's show. With Alabama losing to Oklahoma, it's going to get weird for Alabama too, even with the ranked wins that they had. Because of that national narrative, it is going to grow. There's a serious pucker factor that could happen on the plains. I don't think Texas in any way can make it into the college football playoff with 3 losses. I just don't see any way that it happens. But the question's going to become what happens with Bama and what happens in Tuscaloosa, because that has a chance to be weird. It just does.
The other thing here is, and I want to give some love to Georgia, because I feel like they've been quietly just putting together this 9-1, 7-1 in the SEC resume. Every week we're like, they're going to play a full 4 quarters. We still haven't seen it yet from Georgia. Look, there's a reason why I picked them my preseason, pick to win the SEC. I just thought Kirby gets the benefit of the doubt with winning, basically like we knew the talent was loaded. If Gunnar Stockton lives up to what he's supposed to be, and he's been great for them, this Georgia team is dangerous, man. They're dangerous. I still don't know what happened in that Notre Dame Sugar Bowl. I was there. I can't explain it. Notre Dame just outplayed them. They just played better that day. But outside of that, Georgia has been very few laying in eggs the last 4 years under Kirby Smart. They just win and win at a big time level. So My takeaway from that game last night is Georgia's not going away. They are still a very dangerous team. That, in fact, I might say, like, of all the teams that are built to, I mean, and I guess it's just easy to say because Kirby's won 2 championships. But, like, if I'm picking any SEC team that I think has the best chance to go win a championship, I would probably say them because they've been there. Ole Miss hasn't been there before.
Nope.
A&M hasn't been there before. So, like, Georgia has, and some of these players have. So, if I'm picking a team that I would say has the best chance to go and win a title, a national championship, I would roll with the Georgia Bulldogs. But I don't think that's a hot take.
And in this age of the 12-team playoff where every team in college football is flawed, everything is going to be matchup dependent. So if Georgia gets a bad draw in their bracket, it could be problematic. It's becoming much more like March Madness every single year. So whether Ole Miss, A&M, Georgia, Alabama, whoever's in it, Oklahoma, which looks fantastic right now, especially defensively, it's all going to be matchup dependent.
How about Oklahoma against Alabama? We kind of heard warnings about it all last week. People kept, even Bama people I kept talking to were like, I'm nervous about this game because of how they played against LSU. And LSU, give them credit, they got up for that one, and the defense played great. Their offense couldn't do anything. But I think that's what people were worried about, or Bama fans were worried about, was this Oklahoma defense was better than LSU's. They're coming in here. If they stymie our offense, what if their offense does enough? And the crazy thing is, you look at the stat line, Bama had like double the yardage and everything to get. The offense was there for Bama. It was not there for Oklahoma. But the most important stat, turnovers. Bama turned the ball over 3 times, and that was the difference maker. Oklahoma capitalized, and they win at 23-21. But pretty shocked. The black hoodie myth goes to rest now. Kalen DeBoer loses for the first time in the black hoodie and loses at home for the first time since he took over as Alabama head coach.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This Oklahoma team was without their best pass rusher too. That's something that needs to be remembered.
Mason Thomas.
Yeah, and whenever they threw the pick 6, I was like, oh, this game is going to get weird. Somebody in the comments is talking about Taylor Wine, and he made an impressive play to block that field goal, which turned out to be a game-winning type play, because I don't know if that kick was going through, but that block changed the trajectory, and that allowed momentum going into halftime for Brent Venables. They got a field goal to start the second half, and then it was just like, hey, let's let this defense run. Ole Miss, for all of their stuff going on, whenever they played Oklahoma, they intentionally slowed it down so that the ball was snapped and adjustments was after 15 seconds because the helmet communication got cut off, because Brent Venables is so good at diagnosing what you do. I think Alabama might have been a little bit too cocky about that, and I think Brent was able to find some stuff out, because down the field passing was kind of non-existent after about the second quarter in that game.
What do you think about Oklahoma now? Their last 2 games are home against Mizzou and LSU, 2 semi-dangerous teams. I mean, Mizzou's been in the top 25 almost all season. Now, Matt Zoller's, they end up pulling away in the second half. He didn't have the best of games, but Ahmad Hardy, I mean, my God, he was already the leading rusher in the SEC and 300 rushing yards last night in the win over Mississippi State. Feel bad for Mississippi State, by the way. They need one more win to get to bowl eligibility, and it's going to be tough for them to get it. They're going to have to beat Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl to do it. But for Mizzou, they're 7-3. If Ahmad Hardy can run, maybe not like that, but run effective enough at Oklahoma, they could give them trouble, and then we'll see what LSU looks like with Van Buren and that team. But I just say that to say, is this if you look at Oklahoma, if they win these last 2, I mean, that's a playoff team, right? 10-2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If they win out, they are absolutely in. I figure on Tuesday they're going to come in somewhere around 7th or 8th in the playoff ranking, something like that when it happens. And it's interesting because Missouri, you have to figure that Brent Venables is going to eat alive a true freshman quarterback. I don't care that he's played a little bit; he'll eat him alive. That means that can Oklahoma stop the run enough to keep Missouri off schedule and force 3rd and longs? If that happens, Missouri's defense is good and that pass rush is really good, but you saw that Oklahoma's offense, that's the benefit of John Mateer and what's going on. They had 213 yards against Alabama, but they were effective enough and could score enough to give that defense a little bit of work over the course of the game. I think that at 10-2, Oklahoma's in the dance.
So this is what's going to get very interesting, because Vanderbilt finishes with Kentucky and Tennessee. If they win these last two, I think Vanderbilt has a great chance to get in. If Oklahoma wins their last two, they have a chance to get in. If Alabama wins their last two, they're in. I think if they win the Iron Bowl. So it's this thing gets really sketchy on what's the rest of the other conferences doing, right? Because you very well could, Steven, have a 10-2 SEC team left out if some of these other conferences steal more bids.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel bad for Vanderbilt because this is what I think is going to happen. Let's say that all of that happens and there's one SEC team that's going to get left out. At 10-2, it's going to be Vanderbilt, and that's because of the name on the front of their jersey, not because of how good they are. It's just what it is. We've made way too many Vanderbilt jokes over the course of the SEC tenure to where that is just not in the psyche, and that's a good football team. I will caution everybody. There's still 2 weeks to go. People are still going to take losses. Like right now, it might look a certain way, but there's still teams that are going to lose games. And this is going to likely work itself all out. But I think any team that is likely to miss the college football playoff from the SEC at 10-2, it's likely Vanderbilt, if we're going to be honest, because I think their best win will be the win over Tennessee and Neyland.
Yeah, that's where you really get into this, how much is the committee going to take into account strength of schedule, strength of record, all that stuff. Because again, the thing that has mattered most in their eyes is wins over losses. Oh, you hit 10 wins or 11 wins, you're in, as opposed to looking at who'd you beat, or they always jump to who'd you lose to. And I always say, who'd you beat? Give me your best resume wins. Give me your 3 best wins. Let's compare that to the other teams that are in the conversation. I think that has to be part of this. All right. Coming up next, we'll hit on a couple of the other games we did not hit on, including the 10-1 Ole Miss Rebels right here on Locked On SEC Squad Edition. And today's episode brought to you by our friends over at the Game Time app. And look, there's still a couple weeks left in the college game. If you want to get yourself into a seat at one of these games, no better place to use than the Game Time app. Getting tickets obviously can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping up at checkout. That's why you got to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. No surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And I've mentioned this before. I've used Game Time a couple times throughout this year. I actually just used them recently for an NBA game. Use them for college games. Look, you can secure your tickets right now to an upcoming game that you want, lock it in. Or you can take the gambling route. You can wait till the day of the game and keep waiting hour by hour and keep checking that Game Time app. And sometimes those prices jump down the closer you get to kickoff. It is faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way you're going to buy tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. You download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Steven, let's get into your game. The Ole Miss Rebels beat Florida 34-24, but final score not indicative of how this game played out. Florida hanging around. And I thought, played, especially the first half. I thought DJ Lagway hit on a couple of those big chunk plays and touchdowns, and he did not look afraid. They did not look like the team that got obliterated by Kentucky last week, but Ole Miss defense doing a fair job of shutting them down. And honestly, if Lane would stop going for it on these 4th downs, they probably could have put the game away sooner. But what'd you make of it?
It's a game that if you just looked at the box score stats afterwards, Ole Miss had like 550 yards, 300 yards passing. Kewan Lacey, 233 yards and 3 touchdowns. Would have been an SEC Player of the Week performance, and then Ahmad Hardy had to go absolutely nuts against Mississippi State in the night game as well. But it's a situation to where Ole Miss kind of helped Florida. The interception by Trinidad Chambliss that set up Florida on about the 4-yard line There was an illegal man downfield that took a touchdown off the board. Whenever you look at that, if those two plays are taken away and reversed, which I know you can't do that, you would have a situation that the score would kind of be indicative of the statistics. But Ole Miss did help out Florida. Hey, listen, this is a game, and Ole Miss fans understand this. This game had some PTSD attached to it that Ole Miss fans were watching it. This is a game that Ole Miss over the last 60 years has lost. There's the 4th and 25 against Arkansas. There was the Eli Falls game against LSU. There's always something weird that happens. And you know what, Chris, what's absolutely bizarre? Florida almost had a prayer at Jordan-Hare moment at the end of that game, a deflected interception that almost went directly to a wide receiver that was behind the last person, that Florida was going to take it into the end zone potentially. It is absolutely weird at how this stuff happens. There is scar tissue that Ole Miss had to get over. And that's the reason on my show, I was like, hey, all of you blue bloods, Alabama, LSU, everybody that's doing this, y'all might decide to laugh at what's going on. But this is the biggest game in program history, and it has nothing to do with who Ole Miss was playing. It had to do with the demons that Ole Miss was playing against.
You're talking about the situation. They're in the situation. You win this, you're basically a lock for a playoff.
Yes, it had nothing to do with the matchup. And Ole Miss being able to do that, Kejuan Lacey carrying this Ole Miss team to 10-1 and setting up a game against the Mississippi State Bulldogs for the battle for the Golden Egg. This is kind of rarefied air. Now the Mississippi State game becomes the biggest game in program history because this is all about the playoffs and getting there. And if Ole Miss hosts a playoff game, I don't care if it's Tulane coming in. I don't care if it's Georgia Tech. If there's a game in Oxford, Mississippi on December 19th or 20th, it is the biggest game in the state of Mississippi college football history.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just saying, we recognize that what's important for us, it might not be important for everybody else, but it's going to be a pretty big game. I'm glad that Ole Miss was able to exercise those demons a little bit.
Give me the vibe and give me a percentage chance. 11-16. This is November 16th. Give me your percentage chance on a scale of 0 to 100. Percentage chance you believe Lane Kiffin is coaching in Oxford in 2026.
It's 50-50 at this point. I honestly believe that. He's not. The reason it's 50-50 is let's be real about this. Let's be logical for what's going on. Let's say that Ole Miss makes the playoffs. Lane Kiffin's not going to take another job. He's not going to sign a piece of paper. He's not even going to let it be known that he's going to another job until the clock hits 0 for the final time in Ole Miss's season, which meant that Ole Miss, if they win their first playoff game, then they play on January 1st. If they win that game, let's say it's a Sugar Bowl against Texas A&M, you go on to January 9th. And at that point, whoever is after Lane, you've kind of waited out the time frame. I think that draw specific in this playoff run, should Ole Miss make it, is going to be absolutely huge. But nobody knows what's going on. He's so good at keeping his cards close to his chest and just kind of letting all the disinformation flow around, that anybody that is guaranteed in one way or anybody that's guaranteed in the other is probably likely wrong, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, here's the tough part. You get to the week of December 1st. It's National Signing Day. It's the week of the SEC Championship. Let's assume Ole Miss isn't going to Atlanta. Let's say LSU and Florida reps are pushing Lane, going, we need a decision now. Is that, do they make it known he's going, he's interested or he's going to one of these schools? And then let's just say, for argument's sake, it leaks out there. Pete Thamel puts out there, I'm hearing rumblings that Lane Kiffin and LSU are in advanced talks, kind of like he did yesterday with James Franklin and Virginia Tech are in advanced talks. If you're Ole Miss at that point, do you allow him to?
He doesn't coach.
So you're pulling the plug right there.
Right at the moment that comes out that he is going to go to another team inside the conference and coach a game, he doesn't coach another game for that team.
Just saying advanced talks, though, not even saying it's announced he's leaving.
No, it doesn't even need to get to that point. And you need to let it be known to Lane that it can't get to that point, or else we'll be forced to go into your contract and make decisions based off of that. I don't think it's going to get to that point. I don't believe it will, but if it does, yeah, you got to move on. You make Joe Judge the interim coach, you Charlie Weiss the offensive coordinator, Pete Golding defensive coordinator, and go to try to win a game. But you can't even have anything close to an advertisement for a competing SEC school standing on your sideline.
I keep seeing people keep talking about, state law in Mississippi limits contracts to 4 years. I get all that, but can't they if they wanted to today, Lane could go to the Ole Miss administration and say, guys, I'm done flirting with these other schools. Let's lock it in. Let's announce today. At the end of this season, I will sign a long-term deal, or you guys will make me the highest paid coach of college. Like, they could make that announcement if they wanted to, because we're seeing it made across all the Matt Rule at Nebraska. What's his face at Rhett Lashley at SMU? Like, all these are starting to happen. So there's no reason why they can't come out and say at the end of the season, we will make Lane the highest paid coach of college football, and he's locked in until, he will die in Oxford. Like, he's here for life. So I just wanted to point that out, because I've seen a lot of Ole Miss fans jumping, there's state restrictions and all that. Nothing is restricting him from saying, I'm here for the foreseeable future forever.
And he's on a 6-year contract right now. His contract is through the foundation. There's no limit on how long a foundation contract can be. So he's on a 6-year contract right now. Now, going through the state specifically is a limit of 4 years, but his through the foundation is a 6-year contract currently.
Yeah. Look, if I'm a betting man right now, I would still put money that he stays. But I get there's a lot of smoke with Florida. There's a lot of smoke still with LSU. Look, those folks at LSU have been embarrassed the last couple weeks. They would love nothing more than to hit a home run hire. And again, they're going to have to make him the highest paid coach of college football. They would love nothing more than, and that'd be a huge win for LSU to get Lane Kiffin. I'll just say this. In 2016, I heard from multiple people, he was coming to Baton Rouge to come be the OC under Ed Ogeron, until Saban pulled the rug from under him and said, no, you're going to FAU. So in 2005, when Ed Orgeron came to Ole Miss, he was going to be the offensive coordinator for about a month, and then it just didn't materialize. Is that when he got the U.S.? Was he at U? I forget.
Yeah, that's when I think that's when he got the USC OC job. Him and Sark doing their thing. I think.
Yeah, somebody said if he was staying, he would have said so by now. That's kind of where I am. Like, all these other coaches are saying, I'm staying. And
I don't think he's decided. Yeah, so he just says nothing and lets everybody run with it because he just doesn't know. He could Tommy Tuberville it and pop up there and say, the only way I'm leaving Oxford's in a pine box, right. And then, it's something like that. I understand that it's a horrible thing. I understand the ego and the trolling and all of that stuff. It's just exhausting. But in my opinion, I mean, it's like I tell people, Chris, it's like the Dark Knight Rises, Bane says. Other fans that come in and start dealing with the Lane Kiffin experience, they're renting darkness. Ole Miss fans were born into it. We deal with this every single year. So until the script changes, we kind of know where to perk our ears up a little bit. So we'll see how it looks. Like I said, I don't think he knows. Anybody that is for sure saying one way or another is wrong. And anybody that's announcing a date on anything after the last time the clock hit 0 when Lane Kiffin's team is playing, they're also probably wrong.
I'll say too, I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say there, but I want to live in a weird world where both Kiffin and Sark go to the NFL and just totally blow this whole thing up in the SEC. I think it could be really, really funny. Let's touch on a couple other games we didn't touch on yet. LSU survives Arkansas. I think that's the best way to put it. That was just an ugly game all around. We'd heard Garrett Nussmeier was going to be out, and Michael Van Buren ends up being the guy. It was sloppy early. He settled in as the game went along. Talon Green played very well. But Bobby Petrino, man, I can't say it. Like, you thought Hugh Freeze was close. Bobby Petrino has been close every week with Arkansas, and they cannot get that win. It keeps eluding them. But I don't know how much you saw that one, Stephen. But, hey, look, LSU gets their 6th win. I was happy for Frank Wilson getting a coach as an interim coach at LSU, but just an ugly game. Don't rewatch that game if they replay it overnight.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell Ole Miss fans that are watching this, or anybody that has playoff interest that has played LSU, you want LSU to win games. You want them to be as good as they can possibly be. You don't want them to drop the game against Western Kentucky and be on Liberty Bowl watch. You want them to win games and move up the chart so you can build up your resume. Listen, Garrett Nussmeier hasn't been right all season. I was curious. I didn't see much about this game other than the score and the box score, but I was curious about Michael Van Buren and how the LSU offense would look. And obviously plays got made enough to win the game. Good for Frank Wilson, good for the LSU team and all of that. Maybe next week you kind of get right game against Western Kentucky and go with Michael Van Buren and just set it up for the future. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know what the plan is down there, especially with them getting a new football coach, but I mean, you at least have to give that a shot, right?
Yeah, and that's what's funny about how LSU sees it. Like, nobody thought Brian Kelly was going to be fired this year, but a chance to, like, as I saw somebody say, hey, we could play spoiler against Oklahoma last week of the season. It's like, God, you went from national championship hopes this season to, hey, hope we could spoil Oklahoma's season. Like, at that point, it's just like, man, that's a far cry from where the expectations were. But LSU beats Arkansas 23-22. A&M with the historic comeback win over South Carolina 31-30. Oklahoma beats Alabama 23-21. We touched on Georgia 35-10 over Texas. Ole Miss 34-24 over Florida. I had this. Look, I got the multi-TV set up. I had Tennessee on. They beat the hell out of New Mexico State 42-9. Talked to a buddy of mine's Tennessee fan. He said the only thing was they still had some starters in late when they were getting blown out. One of their D linemen got hurt, and it was like the only thing I saw on that was like, Hypa, what are you doing there? So anyway, they're 7-3. Playoff hopes out the window, but still top 25. And look, they can, talk about playing spoiler. They can knock Vanderbilt out of the playoffs still. So,
which I need that game like air. I want to see a 9-2 Vanderbilt play in Neyland Stadium for the playoffs against Tennessee. I need to see that environment.
My wife went to Kentucky, so we had this game on. It was on ESPN Plus, but I was intrigued from a simple standpoint of Tennessee Tech was 10-0. I was like, holy crap, this was supposed to be a cupcake game. Kudos to Kentucky, man. They, from the get-go, just said, to hell with y'all. We're the best team on your schedule, and we're going to show it. And Kentucky is now 5-5. All they got to do is either beat Vanderbilt or beat Louisville. Maybe they don't beat Vandy, but maybe they beat Louisville, and they're going bowling. And that's crazy because Mark Stoops, about a month ago, Stephen, we all had him on fired watch, and he seems to have kind of saved his job there. So kudos to him.
Yeah, Cutter Boley, man. He's just been the playmaker. We talked about it like a couple of weeks ago. It's like, hey, Kentucky for the first time in like 3 or 4 years actually has something they can point to. And that is a quarterback that can actually make plays. And this offense is starting to grow and everything. They're getting better and better and better. They're at the point, that game against Louisville, the last game of the season, they're going to be a problem in that game because you can see their efficiency kind of picking up. I mean, I think there was a story a couple weeks ago of the offensive coordinator talking with the Kansas City Chiefs about how to use Kendrick Law as speedy player and how to get him the ball because they're so good at Kansas City at getting their speedy wide receivers the ball in space. And all of a sudden this offense kind of opened up a little bit. We made jokes whenever they almost beat Texas, and honestly, they should have beat Texas in that game. But we made jokes that whenever you get schooled in offensive football by Kentucky, you might have a problem. But that turns out that might not be the case.
The funniest part about this is had they held on to beat Texas, I was at that game, and I mean, they were right there. They got to the 1 yard line overtime. They couldn't punch it in. Had they won that game, Kentucky would be 6-4 right now, and they'd have a chance to beat Vandy and Louisville and maybe go 8-4. Like, that's insane how close they are. But I get it. In Bobby Petrino and Hugh Freeze world, close but no cigar, you're not there. You can say close, you're not there. But anyway, I did want to give a hat tip to Mark Stoops. That team is playing hard, and if you're Vandy or Tennessee, you're going, gosh, we're going to play this Kentucky team now? It's not very fun. Lastly, we kind of touched on it, but Mizzou does roll Mississippi State 49-27. And I mentioned Ahmad Hardy with the 300-yard rushing day. It's wild. He and then the guy who left, Kejuan Lacey at Ole Miss, has a historic day. Didn't even talk about him, but 224 yards rushing for Lacey. It's something about Eli Drinkwitz. And this is where if I'm LSU in Florida and Penn State, I continue to look at with Drink is that, yeah, he's been a nice coach, maybe not elite, but man, that dude has found some running backs. And that's the one thing that intrigues me is every year Mizzou's got a stud running back since he's been there. And he's got another one, Ahmad Hardy, who's going to be the best running back in the SEC this year. So it's just one of those wrinkles where I look at Drinkwitz and go, how does he keep finding these guys?
Yeah, it's kind of like Lane Kiffin and quarterbacks, honestly, to the point where if he offers him, go ahead and offer him and go all in because you know that he's been evaluated whichever way that goes on. I mean, Kewan Lacey, a Missouri transfer, by the way, rushing for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ahmad Hardy, who was last year at Louisiana Monroe, by the way, to show use of the portal and all that going on. He's a Mississippian too, as well. He's from Lawrence County down in South Mississippi. He is somebody that I thought going into this game, going into this weekend or this Sunday, that Kewan Lacey was going to have a chance to be SEC Player of the Week. And then you look down and it's like, good grief, Ahmad Hardy. That's crazy. The bad thing about it is Mississippi State's run defense is pretty scary. It's almost to the point where the worst thing you can do is try and throw the ball on them because they're competent at pass defense, but the teams that can run the football completely take them apart. And that's the problem that they have on this football team. And Missouri and that outside zone and all the stretch stuff that Eli Drinkwitz does just completely took them apart.
Well, as we wrap up, Stephen, we had a lot of people commenting, where are the other guys? They're like, everybody's either, we got a church crowd, they're all at church. We got a travel crew that were at games that are traveling, all this. So let's get to a couple of our guys who sent in some videos who couldn't be here. We just talked about Mizzou. Let's hear from John Miller from Locked On Mizzou.
All right, Missouri beats Mississippi State yesterday. Hey, wonderful. That's great. But I bet this audience wants to hear about Eli Drinkwitz and the coaching carousel. I'll be honest with you, this whole time I've been thinking Drinkwitz was going to return to Missouri, but after some comments yesterday about the lack of, corporate support at Mizzou right now, I have to admit I'm starting to waver a little bit, or at least I'm starting to get worried that Eli Drinkwitz may be seriously listening to overtures from Penn State, from Florida potentially, from LSU, from Auburn potentially. Any of those jobs obviously could be enticing to anyone. It's been my assumption this whole time that Drinkwitz will return to Missouri. After yesterday, those comments are making me a little bit nervous, I have to admit, because while this could easily be angling by Drinkwitz, it does make you wonder how much actual corporate money, how many dollars can you actually get committed in 2 weeks' time, basically? That's basically the time frame here. In the next couple weeks, I'd say at the very least by next Sunday after Missouri's final regular season game against Arkansas, I think we're going to have a resolution to this one way or the other. And if you're a Missouri fan, obviously you want to keep Eli Drinkwitz around. And if it means money, I mean, gee, do I have any spare change around here or something? Hold on a second. I'm gonna go check my ashtray and see if I have any spare 20s and quarters out there or something. But until then, you know what? Follow Locked On Mizzou for the latest on Eli Drinkwitz and Mizzou football, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
John Miller keeping 20s in his ashtray. I need to go over to his house, man. That's pretty good.
Making some bank.
Just real quick, your thoughts is Eli Drinkwitz back at Mizzou in 2026?
Eli Drinkwitz is in a similar position to me as Lane Kiffin, to where they just give him whatever's necessary to keep him, and he's going to pay him extremely well. And if he wins 10 games a year like he's been doing, they're going to put a statue up to him. I don't know why he would want to go into that Penn State blender or any of these bigger programs. I'm not 100% sure. But the difference is Eli Drinkwitz hasn't done that before when Lane Kiffin has. Lane Kiffin did Tennessee. Lane Kiffin did USC. He saw how they operated. Eli Drinkwitz doesn't have that on his resume yet, so we'll see exactly how it goes.
Let's hear from Eric Kane, Locked On Vols.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Eric Kane, the host of Locked On Vols, and Tennessee wins 42-9 yesterday against New Mexico State. Again, this is a game that had no juice. Tennessee played like that. Coming off a bye week, heading into New Mexico State, which is your November cupcake, and then obviously coming off the loss to Oklahoma, which essentially knocked yourself out of the college football playoff picture. No juice. Tennessee played like that. 3 first-quarter touchdowns, but sandwiched around a couple of first-half interceptions. Second quarter was brutal. Tennessee's defense gave up 9 points, which is really solid, especially in a game like this. But they gave up way too many first downs. Gave up too many yards through the air. And Tennessee did force a couple of takeaways, which is good to see. But it's kind of like Tennessee won 42-9. The game was never in jeopardy. The game was never lost. Tennessee was never losing this game ever. But, there's more things to pick apart in this game, because this game should have been one of those where, hey, you're picking up confidence, feeling good about yourself because you're going on the road to Florida. And I understand Florida's record-wise not a good football team, but Tennessee's not won in the swamp since 2003. So you wanted to pick up some confidence, feel good about yourself, and play some clean football heading into a showdown in the swamp next week. And Tennessee, in my opinion, didn't accomplish that, plus a couple of key injuries in this football game, which you never want to see, especially in a game like this. So, again, Tennessee won 42-9. The game was never in jeopardy, but a very ugly football game, and not inspiring football, to say the least. We'll talk about it all week long right here at Locked On Balls, and, of course, get you set for Tennessee and Florida right here on Locked On Balls.
The Eric Kane, I think, from his church parking lot there. So appreciate him sending that one in. I did see something interesting, Steve, somebody floated out there. Why have we not heard Josh Heupel's name thrown around? Because there's been some Tennessee fans who were, maybe he's not the right guy. He can't get us over the hump. And he took a step back, made the playoff last year. And look, we said this the day they kicked Nico Yamaliava off the team. Kudos to Joey Aguilar. He's been awesome, but I thought Tennessee to make the playoffs was going to be a long shot anyway. So I just think it's kind of funny that there's some Vol fans that are unhappy with him. But I am curious why, if you're Heupel's representation, why not float your name out there for some of these other jobs?
Well, I think Tennessee's a really good gig too. I mean, if you look at the Venn diagram of better jobs than Tennessee, there's not many of them. 100,000 seat stadium, all the money in the world. They like to play in the transfer portal market and all of that stuff. I think that has something to do with it. I also think that his style of offense is quirky enough that it might turn off some boosters with what's going on, because you don't really understand it, because you think he just tries to throw it around, but he's actually a run-dependent offense a little bit. I don't know why he's not around. Now, I wouldn't take anybody serious online that is saying, hey, we need to get rid of Heupel. We can't get it done, because that doesn't make any sense at all. But I think Josh Heupel might just be happy at Tennessee, if we're going to be honest, to where he's just told his agent, is like, hey, let's just take a year off or so and see what happens.
Lastly, before we call the show, let's hear from Jay Smith, the victorious Jay Smith, who is in Tuscaloosa, heading back home with the big win for Oklahoma.
I know y'all hate to see me. Yeah, I had to do that. Oklahoma pulls out the W against Bama, 23-21. I'm here in Birmingham, Alabama, so I will not be there live for you, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. I don't get to hear me yell and lose my mind. I do have things I need to say, though. Can we get a little respect on our name? That's all I ask. That's all I ask. No, it wasn't beautiful. It was pretty ugly of a win. But it was pretty consistent with the way this team has played all season long. We now have a 8-game sample of this, what this team does. No, 10-game sample. I'm sorry, 10. I can't do math. Why? Because I don't have a voice. And because I don't have a voice, I can't do math. I know it doesn't make any sense. But I'll say this, though. Oklahoma pulled it out. The defense showed up fourth quarter, only giving up 40 yards total. Really making Ty Simpson and them think harder than they wanted to. That was an epic battle between Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, and Brent Venables. And I agree with BV that as epic of a battle it was, no one deserved to lose that game. But the good thing is Oklahoma won. So it's all that matters. Our playoff destiny is in our hands now. I just need us to not fumble this bag. I should see y'all at the squad show. I should. There's no reason not to. So y'all be good. Drink your water. Eat your vegetables. Jay is signing out from Locked On Sooners.
So there you go. A little bit of a victory lap there for Jay. I don't know what hotel he was staying at there, but they got to tuck those cords away, hanging down from that TV. On the way out here, Stephen, coach's poll just came out. Alabama number 10. It's so funny how Bama loses games and they just never fall out of the top 10. It always happens that way.
Always within striking distance.
For years, it was the Saban factor. Like Bama would lose a game and they'd drop 2 spots. Meanwhile, like, I don't know, Florida would lose a game, they drop 12. It's just so weird. But anyway, Oklahoma 8, Ole Miss 6, Georgia 4, A&M 3. So still no change up top. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, A&M 3. So at least A&M didn't get super dinged, I guess, for close win against South Carolina. But there you go. That's going to do it for this edition of our Locked On Squad edition. Thanks to Stephen Willis. And again, unfortunately, we couldn't get the rest of our guys on here. But a reminder to check us out, Locked On SEC or Locked On Ole Miss, Locked On whatever your favorite show is, on the Locked On Podcast Network, part of covering your team every day.